Well, this is the end of week 1 of Halloween horror movie reviews, so what are we taking on this time? I guess we shall see.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, say that thou art High King of heaven, thou art. Hey, wanna play hide and clap?
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review, in episode 6 of Halloween Horror Review 6, is going to be for 2016's the sequel to The Conjuring, The Conjuring 2, which is directed by, and the last of these, to be directed by James Wan. And that would lead to some problems for the later stuff, sadly. Since he did not come back after this, which really sucks because I wish he did. Because I feel this series really belonged to him the most. But anyway, what's the plot of The Conjuring 2? Well, this is now set in 1977 Enfield in London. And the paranormal investigators, Lorraine and Ed Warren, they traveled to London to help their new family, the film called the Hodgsons. After sensing her daughter be possessed and her 4 children get haunted by supernatural happenings, Peggy Hodgson asks for help when a malicious entity takes possession of the second eldest child, Janet. However, there is something a little more threatening, not only for the inhabitants, but also for the investigator couple, something they couldn't even imagine. So, as for my reaction, as you guys all know, I love the first Conjuring film, especially when I first saw it in high school. And well, the ironic thing is, this sequel came out around the time my era in high school was finally ending. Because here's the thing. High school, I don't miss it. No. Some people are like, oh man, I wish I was back in high school. I personally don't. High school was actually hell. I'm glad I'm out of school. Now, school was hell. Some people go back. I never want to go back to school. School was a nightmare. A really big nightmare for me, honestly. So I don't miss my high school days at all. So I was relieved to finally be done 2016. Some people hate 2016, but 2016 was one of the best years of my life. But anyway, I remember seeing this film in theaters right after officially finishing my final day and final year in general of high school, and I would easily have to consider this my favorite film of the series. Yeah, I felt this was a nice way to send out my high school years and teen years as well, and it was easily, and honestly to me, is easily one of the best horror sequels out there, and one of the best modern horror sequels out there, and one of the best modern horror films out there. The reasons being is that I feel, well, sure, some people may have problems with the sequel, but to me personally, this sequel has the best character development. Is kind of why I like this a little slightly more than the first one, because I feel they do improve some areas of character development, like you get a bit more time like with the family and the Warrens together. That's what I liked about this movie. I actually like you got a bit more of that this time. The Warrens meet the family in the middle act in the first film. This one, they meet them a little bit earlier, and you actually get a bit more scenes and more interactions with them. Right here. So I really liked that part that James Wan did here. He actually gave even more character development with these characters, and you get more character development out of Lorraine Warren, and kind of get more development in their love for each other. That's what this sequel does even better. That's why I like this sequel a lot more. So how was this film made? Well, it was around July 2013, around the time the first one was coming out. It was reported that New Line Cinema already started developing a sequel, with both Farmiga and Wilson reprising their roles. By October 2014, around the time Annabelle was coming out, it was announced that Wan would thankfully return to direct the sequel and make his first contribution as a writer in the franchise. And one of the first times where someone else wasn't writing for him. Well, before The Conjuring, him and Leigh Whannell would do some projects together. James Wan directed the first Saw, Leigh Whannell wrote it, and obviously, starred in it. Then they did Dead Silence. Well, apparently, from what I heard, Leigh Whannell hated writing Dead Silence because Universal kept interfering with a lot of their stuff they were doing. But they did do that movie together. I don't think they did Death Sense together. I think only James Wan directed that film and someone else did the writing in that one. Insidious, they both directed and wrote the first one. They did not work together in The Conjuring. And as you all know, also now, Leigh Whannell himself is also director. He directed The Invisible Man. He also directed Insidious Chapter 3, the third one. And, directed the shitty Wolfman film they got at the start of the year. Right. Yeah, right, that film. That was a disappointment. The teaser, the marketing was great for that movie. That movie had a great teaser. And I remember seeing, wow, maybe this could actually be promising. But then the movie came out and it wasn't. And then again, it threw me back to all the troubled production. The troubled production should have already been a warning sign it was not going to do well. It had a bad production. They couldn't think of a plot line. They couldn't think of a director. Either this was too comedic or this is not great enough. So let's rip off The Fly from David Cronenberg and try to be like that film. But The Invisible Man, Insidious 3, I like those films. But anyway, the point is, let's get back to the review. The filming began September 2015 in Los Angeles and concluded in London in December 2015. Then, after the film was officially shot and advertised, The Conjuring 2 would have its world premiere at the TCL Chinese Theater on June 7, 2016, and was actually released in the United States on June 10, 2016 by Warner Bros. Pictures and New Line Cinema. And, like the first film, it got just as much positive reviews as that film, and made even slightly more than the first film, with $320 million worldwide. And this inspired a also bad spin-off about the nun character from this movie, like the first one inspired a bad spin-off about the Annabelle character from that movie. And it got a sequel, The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It, which I already reviewed back in 2021, so I don't have to talk about it. The Conjuring film that I do not like. Just why? But anyway, that being said, this was the last strong film of the series. Because while technically Annabelle Creation is good, but The Conjuring 1 and 2 are still better, but it's the best of the spin-offs. That's really it. It's really just the best, only good spin-off of the series. It's the best of the spin-off cash grabs. Because it actually feels like it has good direction. And The Nun was terrible. The worst of all of them. Annabelle Comes Home. While it's not as bad as Annabelle 1, mediocre. The Nun 2, not as bad as The Nun 1, but mediocre. Devil Made Me Do It, the most boring Conjuring film ever. And Last Rites, actually not bad. Actually kind of good, but still a step down. So this was the last strong film of the series, sadly. Since sadly James Wan left, that was the problem. And I wish James Wan didn't leave. So, here are all the good qualities in the story of The Conjuring 2, and why I think it's better than the first film. So, from the very start, it captures you and keeps you attached to the screen. It does not leave you getting bored. The suspense is great, and it goes increasing quickly through the whole film. There's a lot of heart pounding that could be kicked off from the viewer with this movie. There's many small details, great ones thrown around, like the name of the demon that's shown in the Warren's house. That's more than once in the background. Yeah, the first Conjuring was definitely easily one of the best horror films of the 2010s. Its sequel does an even better job providing some well done scenes that are not normally seen within the horror genres. But how about the scare part? Is this film scary, just as scary as the first film? I would say yes. Now, maybe some of the scares did feel a little bit more realistic and a little more practical, but the scares were still great in this. The scares were still fresh. You can tell they still came up with some good scares at the very least, despite some bit more CGI in them in this one. And that's the thing, too. it's not like a carbon copy rehash of the first film in a way. It actually does feel like it does another story in a way. It doesn't just try to copy, hey, they're going to a farmhouse again. Let's do that again. No, this house is actually in a town. It's in a town this time, not on an island. And like another great thing, like it actually starts off with them investigating the Amityville case. So that was a nice little throwback how you actually include a bit of the Amityville case in that. And well, and I'll mention more Amityville at the end of this review. And Vera Farmiga in this movie is even more superb than in the first one. Her presence in this one is even more strong and much more powerful, and even pulls the viewer through all kinds of emotions in her performance. Patrick Wilson is also even more wonderful in this movie as well. And James Wan really knows how to do every trick in the favor. By the construction of the scares, make the final climax really feel earned. Wan really distinguishes the ability to frighten or intimidate the audience with shots both day as at night. He really knows how horror plays well and combines the tools that possess, and knows to keep constant tone to the film. Right there, the scares do not leave the audience bored in this film. He actually makes the film go by very well, and actually gives time to develop the characters here. Sure, he does do more jump scares, but at the same time, you also still develop some more characters, in a way. You actually get more development, and get more developed chemistry between both groups. And the actors really take all the credits as well. Everyone in this cast is fabulous. They're measuring their charismatic. So, how do we start off? So, we start off in 1976, where you get the Warrens investigating the Amityville murders at the Amityville house. Kind of around the time, like a little bit long before, somewhat before, like when the Lutz happened, when the real Amityville case that we're all familiar with happened. That's been done to death in movies. They're investigating the Amityville murders to determine if this demonic presence was responsible for Defoe Jr. killing his entire family on November 13th, 1974, and then the haunting incident that involved the Lutz family once they moved into that house. And we know where that story goes. And during this one seance, Lorraine suffers a vision where she encounters this demonic nun and witnesses Ed being impaled. And that's kind of how our film starts off. And that the title card then, before the opening title, reveals that it's their most diabolical case yet. So, one of these standout aspects is the strong emotionally resonant narrative. The Conjuring 2, based off a real-life case, once again, adds this layer of authenticity to the events that get portrayed, and it delves deeper into the characters' lives and challenge, and develops the bond between Ed and Lorraine, and makes them more relatable and sympathetic to the audience. Like, you see that as this case. Like, you see Lorraine actually more worried on this case, like thinking that this whole vision that she does not want to happen could possibly come true. And you see her kind of worried about that throughout the film. And the film's cinematography and visual effects are very exceptional. Like, the CGI is still great. It's not as practical as it was in the first one, but it's still great CGI. It creates an eerie atmospheric tone that leaves viewers on the edge of their seats. The dark and haunted setting of the Enfield house really adds to the overall sense of dread, and the clever use of practical effects and seamless CGI really enhances the terrifying apparitions of paranormal occurrences. And with the scarce intention, The Conjuring 2 really explores deeper face of faith, resilience, love power in the face of darkness, and adds emotional depth to the horror elements, and it makes the film resonate on a profound level beyond the jump scares. And the sound design and musical score, they play this crucial role in building the suspense and heightening the terror. The haunting melodies and eerie sound effects really add an extra layer of unease. They create this immersive, nerve-wracking experience for the audience. Like, James Wan doesn't really just follow the typical horror movie blueprint. Like, usually and often a regular horror film, if this was a regular horror film, you would try to prove a ghostly creature, you're also someone, but it never shows up till the people are gone. No. Does James Wan do that cliche? No, he doesn't. They actually all happen in front of anybody, and there's actually no hiding. So I like what he does here. There, where first it seems going to go that way. And when, like, the mother is finally fed up with the two daughters, the ghost actually ends up pretty much revealing itself to the mother. And so guess what? The rest of the film, she's actually on their side. On her daughter's side. I loved that. That's refreshing. Finally, a cliche where I don't believe you in this stuff. And then until the end, it finally happens and I start to believe them. No, that is not the case. They don't have that case with any parent here. Thank God. Why can't more horror films try to do that, you know? Like, why can't that happen a little bit more? That'd be better. James Wan actually does that well. this film. Like, usually you do see a lot of films where actors try to investigate and all stupid things that would probably never work in real life, but The Conjuring is kind of the same as what would happen in that situation, and you actually see the characters are actually smart in this film. So we then get to our new family that's going to be our new characters that they're investigating in this film, the Hodgson family in London. And as their first scene, you get the song London Calling, which I will admit, that's a nice way to kind of introduce the setting, because to be fair, and I'm going to be honest, that song's actually kind of intimidating. At the very end, that song at the end actually gets pretty intimidating, so it was kind of a little eerie way to actually kind of introduce us to the characters. So their two daughters are pretty much troubled, and their first seen smoking outside, they get reprimanded by the headmaster, and once they're at home, they're starting to experience strange occurrences in their home in the London borough field of Enfield. After Janet's plays with this Ouija board that she finds, she's the second oldest of the four children, and then eventually that Ouija board turns out to be a big mistake because she's then possessed and sleepwalks and converses with the entity of this angry elderly man. The media, and then of course this gets the media invested eventually. And eventually, the mother obviously finds a board, is obviously furious about all this, but before she can reenact, the ghosts, the cover then moves, which pretty much exposes that the ghosts indeed are real. So, this gets them all over the media, pretty much, and the media wants to review the family, but the elderly man's spirit, Bill Wilkins, possesses Janet at that time, and Bill Wilkins was the owner who had lived and died in the house earlier. So, the warrants then get requested to prove whether Janet's demonic possession is a hoax. And eventually, though, while they were investigating the Amityville case, Lorraine was fearful that this vision of Ed's death is going to become reality, and so we all saw that she locked herself away from him for 8 days. And then has another vision of the demonic nun, that the demon says its name, and puts her name in the Bible in a trance, and that's pretty much where you kind of see the fear on her face throughout the entire movie. She's worried about losing Ed. That's what I really liked. I really liked that we flesh out more of the Warrens in this film. We get to see a bit more of their love for each other. So while staying at the Hodgson residence, Anne Lorraine consults some other paranormal investigators named Maurice Gross and Anita Gregory on the legitimacy of the case. Gregory gives some video evidence where Janet was wrecking the kitchen while possessed, discrediting the haunting. And of course, and during this scene, you get a few more scenes of the Warrens together with the family, and you find where you learn that they reveal that they're kind of bullied in school, and they kind of teach them that they have to be kind of stronger than the bullies, because this demonic possession is this demon in their house is like those bullies in school. And then you even get another scene where Ed actually sings them Elvis Presley's Can't Help Falling in Love, and it's a nice moment. I like we had scenes like this in the film. That's one of the reasons I like this sequel a lot more. That's what I'm talking about when I get even better character development right here. You actually see them have a bit more time with this family. That's what I loved. Right here. That's one of the best things it does. And one of the best things James Wan does with this sequel. He actually gives the characters even more development. But then, of course, after this whole video evidence stuff, alright. At first, then, eventually, though, they think the family's lying for fame, and they leave, sadly, around the middle act. So you do kind of have a third act breakup in this bit. But eventually, though, they discover that the whole spirit was just a pawn being manipulated by the true demon, the nun. The nun was the one that's actually behind all of this, and wants to break Janet's will. And Lorraine's abilities were blocked by the nun, and so they were unable to find the truth of Janet's possession. And right here, James Wan really remains a master of the craft with this one. He takes what's very challenging and executes it seamlessly well. James Wan, there's another thing about James Wan. James Wan actually does know how to make jump scares. He makes sure the tension is built and maintained well. When jump scares do arrive, they don't feel cheap at all. They're actually very inventive. And the reenactment of the 70s period, once again, the first one was also set in the 70s. This is set around the late 70s. Also another real pleasure. No tricks right here. No lazy door slams. And right here, you really get all the tricks that worked well in the era of the 70s with some horror films. And they really try to get out ideas and mood from other horror greats of that era, too. And When the Warren couple works in this film, there's real chemistry. The kids are great. Like, none of the kids are really annoying in this film, thank God. Right there, like, they actually make the kids actual characters, like they did with the first one as well. And you have like three of them this time. Like in the first one, the family had a lot more kids in this film. Like this one, there's only really three kids in the film. In this one, so it does feel a little more fleshed out that way. And that's another thing too. Like in other bits, like the story, like you have this whole positive contribution to the horror genre. It's very thrillingly well. Like in this one, James Wan really reels in the viewers well with the vision he directs. And it's and very talented as well. Like there's many other twists and turns, and it's really genius. And I really like the dish of a twist where at first it seems like, the crooked man is the one doing this. Like, the crooked man's here behind this, but no, it's a hoax. But guess what? The reason why it was a hoax is because, guess what? The nun was the one behind all this. It was actually manipulating the spirit of the crooked man the whole time. Right there, like the nun was kind of reenacting this plan so it can reenact this vision. In a way, it wants them to believe that it's all a hoax. It wants them out of the house, or kind of wants them out of the house. It wants to use this crooked man spirit to break Jan's will. That was also creative. Like another thing, the crooked man scenes are effective. Like whenever one of the kids is seeing the whole little circle thing that the crooked man's little design is on, it then comes alive. It hides in a tent and kind of chases after. Or when Janet is like sick at home, the crooked man's appearing by the TV going, "My house," and just like that, just out of nowhere. So like another that's an example of like there's some really great scares here. And well, hell, you get this good jump scare at the nun. Like when Lorraine has this painting, the nun thing comes alive on the painting and chases after her as well. Like they go well with the scares. The addition of a twist is great. Like that's another thing about James Wan. James Wan actually does well with twists. The twists he makes are not generic. The twists he makes are not nihilistic middle fingers to the audience for the sake of being nihilistic. No, these twists are well written. These twists are clever. They actually come out of nowhere, and you don't expect them. Like this is a guy who made the twist ending of Saw. And that worked very well. Because that's the thing, like, with the twist ending in Saw, this dead body in the room, you don't think that's obvious. You think the guy's dead. Of course this guy would not be some kind of killer, but it does leave you, it did kind of somewhat leave you some minor hints, maybe this guy could be it. Like, when you see a flashback of Carrie Ells' character, you see that same guy, who looks like that dead guy in the hospital room when he's telling his staff about who he is. Like, it kind of leaves you hinting, wait, is that guy from the bathroom? And then, of course, when Danny Glover and his partner were there trying to foil the Jigsaw killer at the place they tracked down without a warrant, you see this hooded man. And you start to think, like, at first for a while you think Zepp's the killer. And of course, when you see that hooded man in the flashback of how Danny Glover's character lost his partner, that's where you start to wonder even more. That can't be Zepp. That can't be him. Or maybe it's a voice disguise he has. Maybe it's just that. And of course, throughout the rest of the film, the movie wants you to believe that Zepp is the Jigsaw killer the whole time. But then, of course, it seems like it actually goes triumph. Like when Zepp arrives because he knows he has to go kill Carrie Ells because he failed, and then Adam saves his life, but then, of course, at first it seems like triumph, right? No! It turns out Zepp is actually another victim that was only enacting that part because that was part of his game. He had to watch Carrie Ells and Leywin Ells' tests in the bathroom. Then if that whole test fails, then he has to kill Carrie Ells' family to be able to get this antidote because his body is poisoned. And then that body you saw throughout that film woke up, revealed itself as John, the real guy who was in the bathroom with them the whole time. And then you find out that actually was the hospital patient you saw earlier in the film. That actually was him. Like, that's what I thought, and it turned out I was right. Right, right there. It's like even shocking. Like that was the guy that Carrie Ells' character treated at the hospital. He was actually the killer, guys. He was only pretending to be a dead body. He was trying to watch their game, make sure it was actually they were doing his rules. And if they didn't, he would often shock their chains. Right there, because he had a button remote that he was often secretly shocking them if they tried to disobey his rules and tried to cheat. That whole time because Leigh Whannell's character tried to shoot him, but he showed that remote to shock the chain, and then he walked out of the bathroom and he had that iconic twist. And then, of course, the first Insidious even had a twist. Well, it got resolved in the sequel, but it even had a twist where Patrick Wilson was also in Insidious, in the first two Insidious films and The Red Door, but he got his son out of the further. And it seemed like happily ever after there. Yeah. But then there was a bit of a problem. When Elise got those photos and saw they were dirty, when Patrick Wilson's character gave her them, she took the picture and then she realized that was not Patrick Wilson's character who came back. It was actually that old dead bride that was from Patrick Wilson's character as a child's nightmares. That he had confronted. At first it seemed like it disappeared, but guess what? It actually took the time to possess him. It's now out of the further. Fuck. And it strangles her to death. Yeah, this guy does twists well. Now, this isn't a twist down. This movie doesn't have a twist downer ending, but it has a twist to reveal who the real antagonist was. The nun is technically the real antagonist, and the crooked man is just a spirit pawn so it can break Janice's spirit. Or Janet's spirit. I meant to say Janet's. And it does not bring in any confusion. And it's a twist that really motivates character actions, and there are certain actions like right there, like the crooked man was just a pawn to break them all the whole time. It wanted to make it look like that Ed and Lorraine were wasting their time and get them out of the house so that it could successfully possess Janet. That's what it wanted them to. It kind of wanted them to feel that way. It was tricking them. So now we get on with the finale of the movie. So the couple realize this. They immediately race back to the residence. And they find Janet is now possessed, standing at the window, about to commit suicide. And like even some of the kids are now trying to stand up to this demon because they have to remember the lesson the Warrens taught them. Ed has to go and do this alone, but Lorraine tries to go with him, but Ed insists he does it alone. And of course, he does get kind of blindsided a little bit, like when he's in the house. But he's able to find Janet in time. He grabs Janet before she could commit suicide. Is almost close to flying himself, and then lightning strikes a tree, and it turns into a stump that impaled Ed and Lorraine's vision, but Lorraine finally musters up the courage and finds the Bible where she wrote the demon's name, and it's Valak. She dresses the demon's name, and she's able to gain dominion over it, prevent that vision from happening, and send Valak back to hell where she belongs. And this right here frees Janet of her possession, and Lorraine is able to save Ed and Janet in time and pull him to safety. And with that being said, the vision has been thwarted. So the next day, as Ed is being treated for his injuries, he gives Janet the necklace, and the family thanks them for coming back for them. And then they return home, and then Ed adds that item, the Haunted Crooked Man Zoetrope toy. He puts it in the collection and places it right beside the Annabelle doll, and of course the music box from the first movie. Then it doesn't end there, because remember the Elvis Presley scene? Well, Lorraine actually turns on the song that Ed sang to the family, and then they embrace and they slowly dance to it in their living room. Just like that, and it ends right there. After that free shot of them embracing, it ends there. There is no jump scare. No. Oh yeah. Another thing, it does show the telecard that family continued to live in that house. And then eventually, Miss Hodgson would eventually pass away in 2003, sitting in the same chair that Bill sat in. And at first it's going to have a bit of a jump scare there, but guess what? It abruptly cuts away and then it cuts back to the Warrens' final scene. So that is refreshing. Refreshing that there's no jump scare. And I like that it actually has a sweet ending and not a jump scare ending. They slowly embrace while Elvis Presley's can't help falling in love is playing on the record, and a free shot of them embracing. The end. That's the end of the movie. Wow, like, I love that. There's no cheesy, stupid jump scare. It actually has a beautiful ending right here. I love that. I'd say it's probably the most uplifting ending James Wan's did for a horror film. I guess you could also say, well, The Conjuring 1 did have a pretty good ending as well. Like, this ending felt a little more sweeter. Insidious 2 did have a bit of a good ending, but that also ended with another case being investigated and a bit of a jump scare from the Red Demon as well. This doesn't have a single jump scare. This actually ends on a sweet note. Right there. That's how The Conjuring 2 and that's how The Conjuring 2 ends. I would say that, if this was the last movie we saw of Ed and Lorraine Warren, then you know what? I probably would have been fully fine with that. Because The Conjuring Last Rites was a pretty good send-off for them, but I felt this was even stronger. This would have been an even stronger send-off for them. That's just me, though. I get they were trying to adapt all their cases, but that's the thing, though. The rest didn't feel as strong as this. I mean, The Last Rites was pretty good, but even that didn't really come close to this movie did. So I wouldn't have minded if this was the last we saw of the two, because I felt they had a good send off here. That's just me, though. Last Rites was still good once again. So now we get on to the bad qualities. So I would say, for the first little bit, well, first time you meet them, the family doesn't start off too enjoyable. When you meet the family in the first movie, they start off enjoyable as soon as you meet them, but in the first half, they're kind of problematic. Like, the mom can kind of be a little rude at times, and the two older daughters can be a little annoying when you do kind of meet them, but thankfully they do develop better. They thankfully get better as the film progresses. They're still not terrible. There are some scenes with CGI, like the exorcism scene. The Crooked Man can be a little too CGI a bit, and to be fair, the Crooked Man just came off as a necessary character because it turns out the nun was the actual antagonist the whole time. So, like, a part of me still does kind of wish, like, I love the twist that was the nun being the antagonist, but I kind of wish they just used the nun as the antagonist. So, other than those, Conjuring 2 easily one of the best horror sequels out there, and it's also worth a watch. So in the end, I would definitely say The Conjuring 2 is so worth watching and buying for your collection for sure, no doubt, because it is a modern horror sequel that is honestly even better than the original. Definitely watch this if you love the first film. Anyways, that's it for my review of The Conjuring 2. And when I'm going to rank The Conjuring 2, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you want to see another great film of the Warrens investigating another haunting with even better character development, then I would totally watch and buy The Conjuring 2 for your collection for sure, no doubt. If we're going to rate The Conjuring 2, I'm going to give The Conjuring 2 a 9.5 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That officially wraps up my review for The Conjuring 2. So, what's our next episode? Well, because we're kicking off week 2 now, we finished off week 1, we finished the first week, and week 2 is going to be a little shorter, thankfully. We're going back to only 4 episodes of the week. So, what's going to be our next episode? Unfortunately, we're kind of going to go back to going to go back to rants again. Well, one rant first, then a decently positive review, and 2, well, okay. The one of these won't be a rant, the second one won't be a rant, but the others after the second film will be mega epic fucking rants. And don't worry, you'll find out what sequels I am talking about at the end of the remakes of this review. But our next episode, for episode 7, it's going to be the original. Since I mentioned Amityville in this movie, yeah, the Amityville horror is going to be the next episode. And I don't like this version. No. So it's not going to be a positive review. No. The remake probably will, but you'll find out more of that in that episode. Until then, guys, I need to end this. It's 7:54 now. I need to edit this video, get ready for work. That will be it for this. Or get ready for work tomorrow. That will be it for this episode and review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.